Hi everyone. Today I want to make the case that prediction markets are some of the most important information infrastructure of the next decade, and that the version we end up with shouldn't be Kalshi, shouldn't be Polymarket, and shouldn't be any company controlled platform at all. The version that will actually survive is called Truthcoin. Over the next 25 minutes or so, I'll walk you through what prediction markets are, why they keep getting killed by regulators and lobbyists, and how Truthcoin, a decentralized protocol built by Paul Stork back in 2014, is uniquely built to outlast that pressure. Let's start with the basics. Why do prediction markets matter at all? A prediction market is a marketplace where you can buy and sell predictions. The price of a yes share on, say, an election market is literally the market's estimate of how likely that candidate is to win. And these prices are remarkably accurate. There are 5 things prediction markets do that nothing else in our information ecosystem does as well. First, they aggregate dispersed knowledge. They collapse everything anyone knows about a question into a single real-time price signal. Hayek wrote about this in 1945. The central information problem of how a society aggregates what its members individually know. Markets are still the best answer we have. Second, they consistently outperform polls, pundits, and expert panels on forecast accuracy for elections, for economic data, for geopolitics. Third, they have skin in the game. Traders profit by being right and lose by being wrong, so noise gets filtered out. Fourth, they update continuously. Prices move the instant new information arrives, not weekly, not quarterly. And fifth, they're a genuine public good for decision making. Better forecasts mean better policy, better business strategy, and better journalism. That last slide was the what. This slide is the why. What's structurally different about a market compared to every other source of information we have? There's a Latin phrase, nullius in verba, take no one's word for it. That's the motto of the Royal Society, founded in 1660, and it captures the spirit of the scientific revolution. It is also the operating principle of every prediction market. I want you to think about 4 things that markets do that other information sources don't. Aggregation, not access. We live in an information age where the problem isn't getting information, it's combining millions of sources into one honest assessment. A market collapses the world's knowledge into a single live price. Truth, not consensus. Anyone can challenge the forecast, but only by staking money. Insincere actors lose to better informed traders, so the platform self-filters. No gatekeeper, no moderator. Scale, not scarcity. A conversation involves 2 people. A bet involves 2 parties. A market involves everyone simultaneously, and the price stops moving only when no one disagrees with it. Online communities tend to collapse as they grow. Markets just get more liquid. And finally, counterfactuals, not just forecasts. With conditional markets, you can price a decision before you make it. If we fire the CEO, what's the stock? If we raise the rates, what's unemployment? This is decision making, not just prediction. So how do you actually build one of these things? At the simplest level, prediction markets come in 3 basic shapes. The first is a binary market, a yes or no question. Will Clinton be elected in 2016? You buy yes shares if you think she will, no shares if you don't. The price of yes is the market's probability estimate. This is the classic in-trade, Kalshi and Polymarket contract. The second is a scaled market, for questions about value, not just events. How many electoral college votes will Clinton get between 0 and 538? The market price implies an expected value somewhere in that range. The third is categorical, for one of n outcomes. Will tomorrow be sunny, cloudy, rainy, or snowy? Each category is a separate yes or no decision, and together they partition the market into n mutually exclusive states. These 3 shapes are the alphabet of prediction markets. And the really interesting stuff happens when you start combining them. A multidimensional market crosses 2 binary markets into a 2x2 grid. The cell weights reveal not just probabilities, but the relationship between 2 variables. Will the Jobs Act pass, and will unemployment fall under 6%? If those two events correlate strongly, you've learned something useful. If they don't, you've learned that the bill probably doesn't matter. A conditional or mixed market crosses a binary decision with a scaled outcome. You get two side-by-side estimates of the same future under two different policy choices. This is decision-grade information, not just forecasting. And a chained market is a sequence of binary thresholds. Will Bitcoin go above $500, above $1,000, above $1,500? And the prices together describe the entire probability distribution, not just the mean, but the tails, the variance, the bimodality. This matters because two number summaries lie. Anscombe's quartet is a famous example. Four wildly different data sets with the same mean, variance, correlation, and regression line. If you only had the mean and variance, you'd think they were the same. Chain markets let you see the whole shape. All of this lets prediction markets do far more than just forecast. In a paper called Prediction Market Uses Other Than Prediction, Paul Stork lays out 6 categories of application that I think are worth taking seriously. Forecasting truth is the obvious one. Elections, macro, geopolitics, science. Then there's catastrophic insurance. This is the one that excites me most. You can hedge earthquakes, pandemics, war, even nuclear or supervolcano events. These are outcomes where a centralized insurer would itself be wiped out and couldn't pay claims, but a decentralized market can. There's whistleblower bounties. Edward Snowden could have created a market anonymously, bet yes on his own future disclosure, and profited from his risk. Insiders could have outed Lance Armstrong's doping gears sooner. There's futarchian policy, pricing decisions before they're made. There's public goods funding without taxes. Stork proposes autonomous assurance contracts, where the market only releases funds if the lighthouse, the road, or the research project is actually delivered. Full refund otherwise. And there's smart contracts and synthetic derivatives, replicating options, replicating credit default swaps, and shorting any asset on the planet, all through the market structure. Okay, so prediction markets are wildly useful. So why don't we already have them everywhere? Because the existing platforms keep running into the same wall, centralization. Let's start with Kalshi. Kalshi is a US-based exchange that launched in 2021. It's the first event contract market regulated by the CFTC as a designated contract market, or DCM. That sounds impressive, but it means a few specific things. Kalshi is fully custodial. They hold user funds in US dollars on their own books, run the order book, and matches trades on traditional financial rails. Mandatory KYC, US access only. Every contract type has to be pre-approved by the CFTC before it can list. Kalshi did win a federal court ruling in 2024 that lets them offer election contracts, which was a big deal. But the CFTC can still appeal, restrict, or delist any market they want. The verdict on Kalshi? Centralized, regulated, and safer for US users than alternatives, but one regulator's pen stroke away from going dark. Polymarket is the other big platform, and it positions itself as the crypto-native alternative. Polymarket is built on Polygon, an Ethereum Layer 2. Contracts settle on-chain in USDC. Outcomes are resolved by UMA's optimistic oracle. So at the settlement layer, Polymarket is decentralized. That's a real improvement over Kalshi. But Polymarket Incorporated, the company, runs the order book, runs the UI, and decides which markets get listed in the first place. Polymarket has been geofenced from US users since the 2022 CFTC settlement, and in November 2024, the FBI raided the apartment of Polymarket's founder, Shane Copeland. The company can freeze accounts, delist markets, and is a single legal target for subpoenas, sanctions, or shutdown orders. So Polymarket is better than Kalshi on settlement, but the operating company is still a centralized choke point. And the Oracle isn't fully decentralized either. Let me walk you through one of the most controversial moments in the prediction market history, Venezuela 2024. Polymarket resolves dispute outcomes through the UMA optimistic oracle. The way it works is this. Someone proposes an answer, anyone can dispute within a window, and if it goes to dispute, UMA token holders vote on the outcome. Voting power scales with how much UMA you own. July 28, 2024, Venezuelans went to the polls. The Venezuelan Electoral Commission, the CNE, declared Maduro the winner with 51.2%. Polymarket's Maduro wins market spiked to about 95%. The opposition refused to accept the result. They published roughly 24,000 voting receipts, claiming Gonzalez had won by a 30-point margin. The Polymarket contract stated primary resolution source was official information from Venezuela. On August 5th, UMA voters resolved the market for Gonzalez. Maduro contracts crashed from 75 cents to zero. Critics argued, convincingly, that the UMA voters had substituted their political judgment for the stated rule. The official answer was Maduro. The voters picked Gonzalez anyway. Here's the takeaway. Polymarket's settlement is on chain, but the answer to what happened is still decided by a small, token-weighted club. Whoever holds the most UMA effectively decides truth. That's not a decentralized truth machine. That's an oligarchy. This isn't a new problem. Centralized prediction markets have been getting killed by political pressure for over a decade. 2 case studies demonstrate this. First, Intrade. Intrade was Ireland-based and was the dominant political prediction market through the 2000s. They called the 2008 and 2012 U.S. elections with striking accuracy. In November 2012, the CFTC sued them for offering illegal off-exchange options to U.S. customers. There was no allegation of fraud. They were forced to ban all U.S. users overnight, gutting their liquidity, and the company collapsed months later after roughly $700,000 turned up missing from accounts. A successful, accurate market was destroyed not by failure, but by a regulator deciding it shouldn't exist. Second, the Hollywood Stock Exchange. Hollywood Stock Exchange started in 1996 as a play money market on Box Office. Cantor Fitzgerald acquired it in 2001 and spent years building a real money Cantor exchange for film revenue futures. In April 2010, the CFTC approved it. The Motion Picture Association of America, Hollywood's studio lobby, panicked. Real prices would expose flops before release. Weeks later, MPAA lobbying carved Dodd-Frank Section 745 into law, explicitly outlawing futures on movie revenues. A federally approved market was banned by statute before opening a single contract. 2 markets, 2 playbooks, regulators and lobbyists. Both killed because both had a single point of failure, a company you could subpoena, a jurisdiction you could lobby. And the backlash isn't ancient history. It's happening right now in 2026. April 2026, Master Sergeant Gannon Van Dyke, a U.S. Army Special Forces soldier, was indicted for using classified intelligence about Operation Absolute Resolve, the January 2026 military raid that captured Maduro, to bet about $34,000 on Polymarket. He profited around $410,000. The charges include theft of non-public government information, commodities fraud, wire fraud, and unlawful monetary transactions. And this isn't a one-off. The Associated Press flagged suspicious, well-timed Polymarket bets on the U.S.-Iran ceasefire in April. 60 Minutes reports insider trading on U.S. military conflicts is exploding. Meanwhile, the Kentucky Derby in 2026. Polymarket opened a market for the Derby in late April, then refunded all trades and pulled the listing after Churchill Downs asked them to take it down. Kalshi has stayed off Derby markets for 2 years. The block here is the Interstate Horse Racing Act of 1978. Racetracks and state racing commissions must consent before anyone can take wagers on a thoroughbred race. The CFTC preemption argument that Kalshi and Polymarket have used against state gambling laws doesn't beat another federal statute. Washington is now openly debating how to police prediction market platforms. Every centralized venue is a single point that lawmakers, regulators, or lobbyists can pressure, exactly as Intrade and Hollywood Stock Exchange learned a decade ago. So here's where Truthcoin comes in. Truthcoin is a peer-to-peer oracle and prediction marketplace designed as a Bitcoin sidechain. The pitch is simple. No company, no regulator, no off switch. A bit of history. Paul Stork proposed Truthcoin back in 2014 while he was a researcher at the Yale Economics Department. It was the first design to put prediction markets directly on a blockchain. He published the version 1.5 white paper in December 2015. The project was later rebranded as Bitcoin Hivemine, and Stork went on to invent DriveChain, BIPs 300 and 301, which is a mechanism that lets Bitcoin host sidechains without changing Bitcoin's own consensus rules. The team building it now is Layer 2 Labs, and they've been shipping in the open. Their Bitcoin core fork that activates DriveChain is scheduled for soft fork activation at Bitcoin block roughly 964,000 in August 2026, a few months from now. And critically, this isn't theoretical. There's working code today. The Truthcoin DC node runs on Bitcoin Signet right now. The BIP 300 301 enforcer is a Rust implementation that's live. I'll come back to where you can find all of this at the end of the talk. Okay, so how does Truthcoin actually work? Three things to understand: the two coins, the oracle, and the market maker. Let me start with the coins. Truthcoin uses two coin types: Cashcoin, abbreviated CSH, and Votecoin, abbreviated VTC. The reason for the split is that the trading currency and the truth-keeping currency need different properties. Cashcoin is the trading chip. It's pegged 1-to-1 to Bitcoin via the DriveChain peg. You deposit BTC on the main chain, you get CSH on the side chain, and you can redeem CSH back for BTC anytime. The total CSH in circulation always equals the BTC locked in the peg. There's no central issuer, no inflation, no surprise mints. CSH is literally Bitcoin, just on a different ledger. Every market trade settles in CSH, so a trader's risk is purely event risk, not platform token risk, not exchange insolvency risk. Votecoin is the truth keeper. Fixed supply, minted once at launch. No inflation. Anyone who wants to participate as an Oracle voter can hold VTC, and it's freely tradable on the open market. After every market resolves, VTC holders vote on what actually happened, and their voting weight equals their VTC. Holding VTC also pays you ongoing dividends. A share of every market's trading fees flows back to VTC holders, like equity in the platform. And VTC's market price reflects trust in the Oracle. If you cheat the Oracle, you destroy your own asset. That last point, cheat the Oracle and destroy your own asset, is the heart of the system. So let me spend a minute on the game theory, because this is the part that makes Truthcoin work. The game itself is simple. After every market resolves, every VTC holder casts a vote on what really happened. The protocol then redistributes VTC. Voters whose answer agrees with the weighted majority earn extra VTC. Voters in the minority have their VTC slashed and handed to the winners. VTC literally flows from liars to honest voters. The question is, how does it end up honest? Three reinforcing forces. First, the truth is the Schelling point. For any verifiable question, was X true or false? The truth is the obvious focal answer that every voter expects every other voter to give. If you're trying to coordinate with the honest majority and earn the reward, your best move is the truth. There's no other consistent answer for the voters to converge on. Second, cartels are unstable. Imagine you've got a coalition agreeing to vote wrongly. Each member of that cartel has a defection incentive. They can earn more by quietly switching to the truth and capturing the slashed VTC of the remaining liars. The bigger the lie, the bigger the defection bounty, so coalitions fall apart. Third, even if voters somehow cheated as a block, the VTC market price would collapse. Markets would abandon Truthcoin, the dividend stream would dry up, and the liars would have destroyed the very asset they hold. And as a last resort, Bitcoin miners can veto an obviously corrupt ballot. The veto is Sybil resistant because it requires real proof of work. You can't fake it with 1,000 sock puppet accounts. The last piece is the market maker. Truthcoin uses something called LMSR, the logarithmic market scoring rule invented by Robin Hanson in 2003. The key idea: the market is a formula, not an order book. The curve always quotes a buy price and a sell price, so a trader can trade at any time, even if no one else is online. You don't need a matched counterparty. The prices have a beautiful property. They always sum to 1 across all outcomes. They aren't approximate probabilities, they are the live probabilities by construction. Buying yes smoothly raises the yes price and lowers no. The more you buy, the steeper the move, which prevents a single trader from cheaply manipulating the price. The trade-off is that when you create a market, you prepay fixed liquidity seed, the B parameter. That seed caps the maximum loss to you as the market author, and it's the price of providing permanent, always-on liquidity. A bigger seed means a thicker market. The author chooses the depth they want to subsidize, and trading fees from that depth flow to VTC holders as dividends. Think of it this way: LMSR is the difference between a market that's always live, even with one trader, versus an order book that's empty when no one's around. For the prediction markets on rare events, that's the difference between a working system and a useless one. Let me put this whole picture next to Kalshi and Polymarket. 5 questions you should ask of any prediction market. First, who decides what markets exist? On Kalshi, the CFTC pre-approves every contract. On Polymarket, the company picks what's listed. On Truthcoin, anyone, permissionless, no approval needed. Second, who holds the money? Kalshi custodies US dollars on its own books. Polymarket uses USDC on Polygon, but runs the order book in UI. Truthcoin uses on-chain Cashcoin, a 1-to-1 Bitcoin peg via Drive Chain. Third, who decides the outcome? Kalshi, the exchange itself. Polymarket, UMA token holders, concentrated among the largest wallets. Truthcoin, a shelling game vote of VTC holders, plus a Sybil-resistant miner veto as a last resort. Fourth, who can use it? Kalshi, US only, KYC required. Polymarket, geofenced from US users since 2022. Truthcoin, anyone, anywhere, no KYC, no geofencing. And the final question, who can shut it down? Kalshi, the CFTC with a single decision. Polymarket, multiple regulators plus the company itself. Truthcoin, no one. There's no operator to subpoena, no jurisdiction to ban. Step back from the table. 4 structural advantages that compound once prediction markets become important enough to attract serious pressure. Censorship resistant by design. No company or regulator can delist a market. There's no off switch. The failure modes that killed InTrade and Hollywood Stock Exchange and the regulatory squeeze on Kalshi and Polymarket today, those modes are structurally absent. They simply can't happen. True decentralization at every layer, no trusted operator, market creation, settlement, custody, resolution, all on-chain. The shelling game Oracle has no admin and no dispute committee, and no concentrated token whale can dictate truth. Fixed supply Votecoin makes Sybil attacks unaffordable, and miners can veto a corrupt ballot as a Sybil-resistant final safeguard. Aligned with Bitcoin's ethos, Truthcoin is a Bitcoin sidechain, secured by Bitcoin's own proof of work. Cashcoin is a literal 1-to-1 peg to BTC. No separate token economy to pump, dump, or rug pull. It's a neutral protocol, not a corporate platform. And built to outlast pressure. Global from day one, no geofencing, no KYC. LMSR provides automatic liquidity even when natural counterparties are scarce. VTC dividends align voters with long-term Oracle integrity. Short-term fraud destroys their own asset. And protocol-level fees can undercut heavily regulated corporate exchanges as the market grows. These advantages don't matter much when prediction markets are a curiosity, but once they're load-bearing, once people start using them to make real decisions about war, public health, finance, scientific research, that's when centralized platforms become unsustainable and a neutral protocol becomes the only thing that can survive. So that's the case for Truthcoin. If you want to go deeper, here are two places to start. For the theory, truthcoin.info. That's where you'll find Paul Stork's original white paper, his full paper series, Purpose, PM Types, Applications, Manifesto, Manipulation, MITs, Crime Markets, plus an archive of his media appearances and the drive chain design discussions. For the code, github.com/layer2labs. That's the GitHub organization that ships Truthcoin and the surrounding infrastructure. Truthcoin DC is the sidechain node. The BIP 300-301 enforcer is the Rust implementation of the drive chain peg rules. The main chain repo is the Bitcoin Core fork that activates drive chain. And drive chain launcher is the user-friendly front end. And the part I really want you to take home, and this is recent, the latest release of Truthcoin DC, version 0.15.1, shipped on May 16, 2026, just a few days ago. This isn't a paper, this is software being actively built running on Bitcoin Signet today. Thank you for listening.